Is the supernatural indistinguishable from magic and advanced technology? One of the common assertions that atheists make these days is that if we were to travel back in time, the people there would not be able to tell the difference between our technology and what they would consider to be supernatural. Or, if aliens were to come to our planet with advanced technology, we wouldn't be able to distinguish that from the supernatural either. However, both of these assertions beg the question, because we don't have a way to travel back in time, nor have aliens come to our planet. So when they make these assertions, they're assuming the conclusion that they're coming to, since it hasn't been demonstrated. It's a purely hypothetical scenario. With that said, let's say for argument's sake that one of these scenarios could take place. Let's say we did have a time machine and actually went back in time a few hundred years. It's probably true that the people there would think our technology was supernatural at first glance. However, upon closer inspection, they would find out that it wasn't supernatural. And that's the whole point, because we know that our technology isn't supernatural, and with time, they would come to know that as well. So at the end of the day, this really is a fallacious scenario, because when it comes to claims of the supernatural, just like all other claims, they have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. You can't just start with a bias against the supernatural. However, this is what atheists tend to do. They start with a presupposition to naturalism. The famous agnostic New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman once said in a debate that Jesus' body probably wasn't stolen, but it's still more probable than him rising from the dead. But to say such a thing is a clear bias, because if the evidence supports the conclusion that he rose from the dead, then it is probable, because we are coming to that conclusion based on the evidence. But a lot of atheists, if not all atheists, seem to strongly imply that no matter what the evidence is, it must lead to a natural explanation. So it's no wonder that they end up with a natural explanation, because they're starting out with that presupposition. It's circular reasoning. But if we don't start with a presupposition, that allows us to follow the evidence wherever it leads, including the supernatural. Now, as far as equating the supernatural with magic, I would say the same thing. It has to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis to determine if what is happening is just a trick, like magicians do on stage, or if it's supernatural. It's not enough to say, well, we know magicians can trick us, therefore the supernatural is indistinguishable from magic. That doesn't follow. We have to go by the evidence in order to determine if something is a trick or if it's real. In the case of the resurrection, we have to go by the historical evidence, just like we do with all other historical accounts. But if you don't start out with a presupposition to naturalism, without a doubt the best explanation for the resurrection that fits all of the criteria is that Jesus rose from the dead, just like the eyewitness accounts claim. And then given the fact that we have other independent evidence of God's existence, it makes it even more reasonable and plausible to accept that as the explanation. Because if God exists and He created the entire universe and everything in it, including life, then it's perfectly reasonable to believe He raised Jesus from the dead, because He would obviously have the power to do that. So when it comes to claims, period, they have to be tested on their own merits. They can't just be dismissed out of hand because of a bias. That clearly isn't reasonable. Well, guys, that's the video. So let me know what you think, and remember to like and subscribe.